Hi everyone, I'm Gina Minardi and I'm a licensed therapist who got fed up with therapy. This is a one-woman show about my journey of finding the spaces between non-traditional approaches of healing. What I learned is that there's no one right way to heal, and you truly are your best resource. Therapists and healers are meant to support you on your path, but they don't have all of the answers. You do. This show is about the spaces between laughter, tears, thoughts, ego, soul, messy growth, and moments of joy. It's about personal liberation, inner knowing, and the tools that get you there. I will cover topics that make many of us uncomfortable and interviewing people who are willing to go there. I've spent thousands of hours listening to human beings navigate their life story, from rehabs in Malibu to homeless shelters in East LA, and now my private practice. It has been some of the most profound, painful, and beautiful moments in my life. Thank you so much for joining me. I am super excited to introduce my guest on Spaces Between today, Janis R. Cohen. She has been a licensed therapist for almost 30 years and is also a clairvoyant, empath, and medium. Janis works with spiritually conscious people who struggle with making decisions and taking actions in their life, which is why Janis holds a very special place in my heart, because when I was really struggling to start my podcast, I had been listening to Janis's podcast, and she talked about how in her first episode, her throat closed up and she just felt so nervous. And then when she later listened to herself, that it was just like a whole new woman was speaking into the microphone. And I thought to myself, I have to talk to Janis. So I did. And she coached me through opening up. You guys heard this in a few episodes before on opening up the damn microphone box. So that was you, Janis. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to start with how are you doing today? How is the beginning of your 2021 going?
Wow. I'll tell you what, thank you. I'm so happy to be on your podcast. I know we've talked about this for quite a while, and I know you're really giving the world your gifts, and anybody who listens to your podcast is going to get such wisdom, because I can tell you just from the time that we've spent together, there's so much for you to offer, and I can't wait to hear it. So I feel grateful to be here. And my 2021, it's starting off well. You know, it feels like January has just passed so fast. And I feel like with most people, I'm kind of in between things. Colette Baron Reed has this card in one of her decks, and it's called In Between Worlds. It's kind of like you're not where you were, you're not where you're going to be, you're just kind of like where you are. So I'm kind of waiting for things to evolve. But in the meantime, I'm doing my own thing, writing, doing the podcast, seeing clients, blah, blah, blah. And here I am with you today.
And here you are. Amazing.
Yes, loving it.
Yes. So I guess I first want to start with, so you say that you're an intuitive, a clairvoyant, and an empath. And
Yeah.
you're also a licensed therapist, which I really want to throw that in, because I think you and I both know that when you first go to school, to get your master's in therapy, it's not really talked about that, you may also work primarily.
Oh, please.
Yes.
No, not 30 years ago, honey. No. No, a psychic therapist. Are you kidding me? No, none of that was even talked about. And anybody who knows anything knows that you go to school, you learn stuff, and then the real learning, theoretically you learn in school, and then the real learning comes from the actual doing of it. So I'll tell you, it's so weird to think that I've been a therapist for that long, because I think I'm a perpetual kid, which is not a bad thing. But I'm getting older, girl. Anyway, 50s are great. I digress. Let me get back on track here. So I've been a therapist almost 30 years. I'm a clairvoyant empath and medium. So as a clairvoyant, I see images, words, people, places. I see people's energy. I see their emotions. I see their patterns, their blocks, the resolutions. And I work with my spirit guide team, the person's spirit guide team, and spirit. So it's this collective higher consciousness wisdom that I call they. And they show me everything I need to see. And also, as an empath, I literally and metaphorically feel things of other people. So typically, when I'm working with somebody, I'll move out of the way and I will literally feel what's going on in their body. If they have an ache or a pain or they have any kind of medical issues, spirit shows me that a lot of the times. And then metaphorically, my body will offer signs and signals that aren't typical of me, that are representative of the person that I'm working with. A very kind of typical example I give is like right now, my voice sounds very, very clear. If it happens to be that when I'm talking with a client, that all of a sudden I start to cough or I need to swallow or I need to take a drink, there's some emotional, psychological component to that because it's with expression. That's in the voice, the fifth chakra, right? Uh, and so I'll ask for clarification while I'm sharing, and boom, there's what we work on. So it's really been a very, very cool meshing of worlds.
It is a very cool mesh.
I never thought I'd be here. Let me tell you, I never thought I would be doing this.
Yes, yes.
And talking to dead people too. So
okay, there you go. Did you hear that, people? She talks to dead people. So as I'm sure the audience, look, the world is full of skeptics. We're not going to focus on that because I've brought intuition into my own practice, and that was not something that I anticipated either. That was something that really blossomed. But what I'd like to, going back on what you were saying, getting the images, feeling into people, when did that really start to kind of come to fruition for you? Do you remember that? And was it overwhelming for you?
Well, it's fascinating because as a little girl, I have always been a very sensitive person. So as a little girl, I always kind of sensed things about people, but I never really knew what that was. And nobody in the generation, my parents' generation, and nobody in my life ever knew about anything spiritual. So it wasn't like there was anybody to educate me. But when I turned 40, all of a sudden my gifts opened up. And this is so funny because I remember, I'll tell you a story that's always fascinating. I was doing a psychic fair when I first started out. A very, very gifted friend of mine had recommended me to this woman who ran a psychic fair once a month. And she says, I got somebody, she's really, really good. And I was not very confident in using my gifts at the time. And I didn't even know what my gifts were necessarily, even though I had been on a spiritual journey, probably for about 10, 15 years at that point. So I kind of knew of stuff, but I was like, I don't know how it applies to me. So here I was, and I'd met this woman for the first time that was the owner of the psychic fair. And I hadn't really read publicly for anybody. I had done some cards here and there on Facebook, but it really wasn't anything. I was like jumping in deep, right? So I'm doing a couple of readings for people. I'm using the cards and I seem to be making some hits, right? Like accurate things. And then take a break. And she says, hey, how's it going? I said, I think it's going okay. She goes, I want you to read for me. And my stomach went into my throat. I thought, oh God, how am I going to do this? So I remember I had to wait for a little bit. And then all of a sudden she goes, okay, come on back. So she was testing me. And this is the first time I'd kind of been out publicly reading. So as I'm walking to the back, I prayed. I really called on my angels. I called on God. I said, y'all got to help me out here. Either this is shit or get off the commode time. Like, this is it. So we sit down and pull cards. But what was interesting, prior to her calling me back, She was sitting at a white desk, and there were some couches in front of her. We all kind of hung out until the people came in, and then she divvied us up to do readings for this, that, and the other. So as I'm sitting there, um, it's like I'm across from her, and I keep seeing this little girl to her left, leaning on her left leg, and I saw everything. I saw the blonde hair, the blue eyes. I saw her dress. I saw her little socks, the little lace socks, and her white little shoes, and like she was smiling at me, kind of leaning on her mom. So we get back to the table. Fast forward, we get back to the table. She picks cards, whatever, and I go, "Hey, I have a question." "Okay," she says. And this woman was not the warmest woman, needless to say. Yeah. So I said, "Hey, do you have a daughter?" She goes, "No, I have a son." And I said, wait a minute. Are you sure you don't have a daughter? Listen to that question. Are you sure you don't have a daughter? Like she wouldn't know if she had a daughter. She said no, and she was emphatic. And I said, "Are you absolutely positive that you do not have a daughter?" Do you realize how stupid this sounds? Like to somebody, okay, right? I said, "Because I saw a little girl leaning next to you, and she looks like this. She has blonde hair, she has bangs, she has your eyes. She's about 4 years old. She's in a white dress, white patent leather shoes. She's got those little pretty little girly white little socks that you bend over the top." And she looks at me, and her mouth falls open. She said, "I lost a child 4 years ago." And I said, "Well, that's her." And I said, "She's with you." She goes, "Okay, you're good. We're done." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa." And I didn't know what that was. I was like, "Oh," because she looked real. That little girl looked real. So that was the first time that I had actually realized that I had mediumship gifts, and that, I was blessed with these gifts of kind of being able to see things about people. And that woman was actually the woman who, she said, "You know what, you're the intuitive counselor." And I corrected her. I said, "No, I'm the intuitive therapist." And that's how I came to be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the story. And then it just kind of took off. I read kind of every month. And then eventually I could not help but incorporate that into the work that I did, because once my gifts opened up, everything, the trajectory about who I was going to become, how I worked with clients, it changed. And the pace of shifting with clients, and the how rapid it was, the clients made strides, was beyond what I had ever experienced before, because I could see things that would take, and I say this humbly, that would take a traditional 5 sensory therapist months and months, even years, to see in a client. So it just shifted everything. So that's kind of how things got started.
Whoa. Yeah, I would certainly say that is, yes, that was a huge moment. And
Yeah.
and receiving, because in my own experience, I've experienced overwhelm with certain things coming in. Mine is different. It's more,
Yeah.
comes through in sort of like an auditory. This is actually the first time I'm
Beautiful.
publicly saying this. So look at you,
Good
Janis.
for you.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, because it's always one of those things that you think, ooh, okay, Gina's the therapist that talks to herself in session,
Yeah.
but I get really clear, very clear information about my clients. And it's just kind of this, I would say it's a voice that is mine, but different. And so, but I was going to ask within that, did you ever experience overwhelm in getting the images? Because I have talked with some intuitives and other intuitive healers or psychics who went through periods where it was too much. It was too much information, too many images. It almost felt like they were bordering on, I don't want to say losing their mind, but ish, it was.
You know what? I want to answer that question, and I want to
Yeah.
explain something to the listeners. So remind me about the 4 clairs. I'm going to come back.
Okay.
have I gotten it? Yes, in a reading or in working with client, sometimes there's so much stuff that comes through so fast
Mhm.
that is overwhelming. But I don't feel the energy of overwhelm. That's just that distinction. Sometimes there's so much, and I can't say it as fast as it come in. So I have to ask them to slow down, my guides, and give it to me a little slower. Otherwise, I kind of piecemeal it, and it eventually, ultimately makes sense. But I want to talk uh, to the listeners about kind of piggybacking off what you just said,
Mhm.
because everybody is intuitive,
Yes.
every single person. And in my opinion, I believe everybody is psychic too.
Mhm.
In all honesty, I think there are some chosen people who are given certain gifts, uh, and they need to use them in this world, like these very, very talented mediums and healers and people who communicate with animals and plants, and like those are very, very real gifts, and people are many are born into them, right? They come being able to already do those things. And there are those of us who have had, I'll speak for myself, lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of being gifted, but having been punished for those gifts. So it took me until 40 for my soul to say it's now okay
Mhm.
to come out of the spiritual closet. But I wanted to talk about this whole concept of how everybody's intuitive and everybody's psychic, because we each have a primary way that we get information. And then we have the other that are supportive ways. So there are four clairs. Okay. Clair is a French word for clear. So if you're studying anything in spirituality and you're trying to figure out how do I receive information, there are the primary four ways: seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. So if you're saying to yourself, gosh, I don't know how I get information, I say to you, I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're going into a restaurant. What do you notice first? What you hear, what you see, what you know, what you feel. That is your primary way of picking up stuff. And then the other three are supportive, right? So I hear things too, but my primary way is seeing. Your primary way is hearing,
Mhm.
and you are also shown glimpses of things too. Okay. Now there are other ways also of getting information. Sometimes we could smell things, and I'm forgetting what the Claire is called anyway. But sometimes we smell things, sometimes we taste things, sometimes we have this knowingness. Uh, we've never been there before, but somehow we know a language, or we know a word, or we know a person, right? That's claircognizance. We have clear audience, which is clear hearing. We have clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairsentience, clear feeling. So they all work together, but there's usually a predominant way of getting information. So that was just kind of like my big, but it can be a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
So you have to protect yourself energetically to make sure you don't get overwhelmed, and know how to ask for help when you get information.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I once actually had an intuitive that I was working with who said to me, you can always slow down the information. And
Mhm.
that has been something that has felt really good for me because
Yeah.
I naturally operate at a fast pace and sometimes I get information at that pace. So just slowing things down feels very, and knowing, right? And it's always that the power is within, that the power is not external. And as you going back to what you're saying, everybody can tap into this. And
Yes. Yep.
I love that you say that because I think a lot of times it can be perceived as this sort of um, how do I want to say this? I have met
Woo woo
people,
weird. Yeah.
well, weird, or I've even met people who I would say there can be a certain like these are my gifts, right? And there's a
Oh,
little bit of an arrogance or
arrogance. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
within
Sure.
yes,
Sure.
within the psychic world. But that no, we're all connected to this, and we
Oh
all,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But as you said, I think there are some of us who come through in this incarnation that really we're supposed to use gifts specifically. You and
Yep.
I work with people to help them heal in their lives and to
Mhm.
help them
Mhm.
find direction. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
How nice not to have, like, the way I think about it, it's exciting, that I mean, like, I know you and I both feel privileged to do what we do.
yeah.
I know we both feel very confident about how we do what we do,
Mhm.
and then to be able to have this added gift, like, that's some like, to me, that blows me away because we get it's just so special that we get to help people faster because we hear things that or we see things that somebody who isn't blessed in that way sees and hears.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
How lucky are we,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, pretty lucky.
Yeah, but as you said, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really understand. I didn't really understand my sensitivity, and I was just so sensitive as a child.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I think you know this. I lost my mom when I was 17, and
Mhm.
I started having dreams about that, and they were very, intuitive, or some would say, yeah, I don't know even the right word for it, but
Yeah.
it was her, and it was her sick, and it was her in the hospital, and I was in 4th grade, and I remember feeling like this feels so real, and this feels like this is going to happen, but I would just call her. My parents were separated, and I would call her from my dad's house just to check in to see, are you still alive? Are you still breathing? And I remember one time she was like, Gina, why are you calling me so early in the morning? But I would never tell her. But that was kind of for me, that was the beginning of going, whoa, you can,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you
So
can.
you have prophetic dreams. That's what that
That was the
is.
word. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 I was like,
And that's
yeah,
yeah. So if somebody doesn't know what prophetic means, it means that
yeah,
it's kind of like a foreshadowing. It's like you're able to see what's coming that
mhm,
hasn't happened yet.
yeah,
So there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And those things can be scary, especially when you think about what it is that you saw. That's your mama getting sick and dying.
yeah,
Holy crap.
yeah, yeah.
There's no
I'm-
blessing in that. No blessing unless you do what you did, which is you stay connected to her and you try to get as much out of that relationship as you can until
Yeah,
God calls her, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm. Wow.
I know. Yeah, it was and then it's come about in all different forms, and as you said, as I've gotten older, it's really blossoming more. And I think
Yeah.
that comes with when you really step into your own power, and you believe in yourself, and there's a different sort of opening to it as well.
Right. And look, hey, it's a blessing and a curse. It's mostly a blessing.
Yep.
But there are times where I promise you, I wish I would say to myself, and I'd say it out loud to people, I wish that I was not this aware and sensitive. I
Yeah.
wish I could be one of these ignorant people who just goes along their way. You're really not affected by much. That's just not my life.
Yeah.
So, but trust me, there are times where I wish I could just check out like they do.
Yeah. Yes,
I
right.
can't.
And just feeling everything.
Nothing. Just feel
Yeah.
nothing. Feel nothing.
Instead, we feel all the things all the time.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
learning how to, again, sort of find my own energetic boundaries with not needing to
Right.
feel into everything. Yes.
Yes.
Or sharing information with people that I don't need to. That's another good one.
Mhm.
Mhm. Boundaries, boundaries.
Yes,
So, Janice, I wanted to talk to you. So, you wrote a book. Okay, I know
I
you're writing
did.
your second book, and
Yes.
yes, and your first book is the intuitive. It is the intuitive therapist, which
Yes,
seems
it
like
is.
the appropriate title for you. um,
Yeah,
so how if somebody in the audience is interested in opening up their intuition, are there things that you talk about in your book that could
oh,
help?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
this book, like, it was a dream come true, first of all, um, and so I'm very, very proud of it, and I divided this book into 3 parts. It was originally written for therapists, coaches, and counselors to really expand their intuition, their gifts. Like I said, everybody has them, to really help their clients faster. In other words, to kind of do what I do. I want to be able to teach people to help people faster. So it's divided into three parts. The first part is just kind of sharing myself. Just, I think what the most important thing is, and I believe you're this way too, is to just be so transparent. Like, if there's any part of your life you can use to help somebody, hell yeah. I'm going to use it. I've been through it. It's done, right? Let me use it, right? So there's the first part of just kind of helping people understand how I've become the way I've become, and different things in my life that I've gone through that have been very difficult, that have been spiritual, that have been all sorts of stuff, that have gotten me to where I am today. So that's kind of one part. The next part is really it's a very big part of the book, which is, what is intuition? How to know, what's a test to know what your primary clair is, right? That one way that you receive information primarily. Then there are exercises, there's meditation. I mean, like, it's expansive. And what I've also done is I've thrown in, because I wrote, that was published in 2016. So I threw in all of the kind of kitchen sink of strategies that I've used with my clients, so that any new therapists who get a hold of the book, counselors, coaches, they can start applying these little tricks of the trade, so that their work can be more fluid and better, let's just say. And then the therapist, I really helped the therapist kind of understand not only how to harness their gifts, but how to make a business out of it. Because I have since trademarked the intuitive therapist. Now, granted, there are therapists who are gifted and they do what I do, but nobody has claimed it. So I cornered the market with that, and I'll be very, very honest. And ever since I did that, so many therapists have come out of the woodwork saying, thanks for paving the way. This is what I do. I haven't told anybody. Too scared. Boom, read your book. Oh my gosh, this is what I do. And lay people as well. Tons of lay people have read the book. I may be exaggerating about tons, but several hundred probably. I don't know the exact number, but they read the book, and it feels like it's been helpful for lay people to really get in touch with trusting themselves. Because I think that's a big challenge for a lot of people, is trusting yourself. In fact, I just got off from a session with someone, and that was the crux of really how she could move forward, is, I just need to be able to trust me entirely, and then everything else will fall into place. And when you connect with your intuition, and you get to a point where you just trust it implicitly. Flow is a given. Being in flow is a given. Life is so much easier. And there are very few things you question. So that was, including all of that, like I said, kind of threw everything in there. Dream of mine to do. And I'm so grateful that people have found it helpful. And I just, again, it's to be able to offer stuff that's useful, to therapists, coaches, and counselors. So,
yes. Hi, friends. I just wanted to take a quick break and thank you for tuning in. I love making this podcast for you, and I hope you love listening. If you do, the best way to show it is leaving a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much in advance, and now back to the show. So following up on what you were just saying, so you said that some of the exercises that you would have your clients do, or other therapists, do you think opening up intuition comes from sitting in silence, meditation? Do you feel like those are practical ways that people can open these things up?
Oh, there's no question, because meditation, I mean, the bottom line of meditation is connection to self and awareness of self. So it would be impossible for intuition not to be noticed, noticeable, or connected with in meditation, right? Mm-hmm. And I tell people, it's like some of the very quickest ways you can know that your intuition is active, even though it always is active, but sometimes it's much more prominent, is you'll get these hunches and this kind of sense of knowingness, a fleeting, almost like subtle nudges. For example, one day, a couple of years ago, and I used this example in my book. I was walking out of my house and something had me turn around, and I saw my umbrella on the table. And I was like, nah, I don't need to take that. Right? Okay, so I leave and I don't take my umbrella. Go figure. It starts to pour just as I'm walking out of the grocery store back to my car. So it was that fleeting moment of, don't forget the umbrella, but it wasn't such a we'll call it a direct hit, so to speak, or so loud and bold. Just these subtle nudges. But meditation, without a doubt, is the way to connect with your intuition.
I would definitely agree. As I've talked about before in the podcast, also with my clients, that stillness, that silence, I mean, that's really connecting to your God space, I would say, your own, the godliness that's within you, and then connected to everything else. So I like to say it's that kind of glitter gold. When you get in there, it's really rich, but otherwise you're just consistently in the monkey mind, and that mind that's always going future, past. So creating that space to really be present and to open up that channel, it's important, and I think it only gets greater the more that you meditate.
Right. And the monkey mind too, I'm glad you mentioned that, because most people think that meditation is so difficult because their mind doesn't quiet down. And I tell people, the majority of people's minds will never be quiet. I think that's very honest to say, unless you've been a practicing yogi for a long time, and I mean years and years and years, your mind is not going to be quiet.
Yeah.
However, if you develop a practice of kind of detachment, where all you do is just kind of notice the thoughts and let them leave as quickly as they come in, your meditation will be much more successful. You're not judging the thoughts that you have. Instead, you're observing the existence of your thoughts, taking a step back and letting them go. So I always like to tell people that.
Yeah, absolutely. And learning how to be with, it's really, because as you said, I mean, I'm sure even monks that spend their entire lives meditating, you're still going to have thoughts that pass through.
Yeah.
So learning how they're going to have a lot less than say you or I, but learn how to be with, and that's the practice of, and the acceptance of what comes
beautiful
up.
Yeah,
I
agree.
So Janis, I also know that you are, this is a little bit of a segue away from the intuitive, but you're really great at helping people take action in their lives, really become more decisive. Yes, stop the meandering and the kind of the vacillating and the back and forth. What do you feel is your Janis R. Cohen special sauce when you meet clients and they're stuck in their careers, maybe they're in a marriage that's miserable? How do you feel that you work with people to really make clear decisions and take action in their life?
Yeah. Well, I love that question. And I feel like I have enough experience behind me to say that everybody knows their answers. That sounds like everybody knows their answers, flowery, all that stuff, but it's very, very true. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. And even in my own life, when you think about it, when push comes to shove, people know what they want. They know what they don't want, they know what they want, and they know what gets in the way, even if their default is, I don't know. So I lean into the truth that people really do inherently know what they want in their lives. The fact that emotions get in the way, that's a whole nother thing. But what I find is that people come to me, I think, already with an understanding of how I operate, because God uses me straight up. My personality is very direct. I'm not obnoxious, but I'm straight up. I still have this very sensitive side to me, a shy side to me. But in my work, I have been blessed with the ability to say things in a very, very direct way without offending people. It's just, and I don't know how that happens. That's just how they say it. That's how I share it. And that, so I feel like in a way, being able to share things directly in a non-offensive way, but very clear, helps people. But I also feel like that you can't have a goal without an action plan. You can't just have one without the other. So I'm all about taking steps. I'm all about I do not want to sit in the shit of somebody's feelings. By the time they get to me, they've been there long enough. And I say that straight up. You know, I'm not a typical therapist. I'm more goal oriented, which is more of a coach, right? So I've shifted into that. So we're going to get very clear about where you want to go, what you want to do, and we're going to figure out a plan to get you there. And then the beauty of the work is I have these gifts. I'm a, you know, I have these psychic gifts. I can see shit, right? So I get to use that. So I'm able to ask specific questions that I am shown in order to help, you know, people make some progress. Yeah. So I think that's the special sauce, all of that.
I would say,
people like it, the hardest part is getting really honest about yourself and then figuring out how to do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My goal, in all honesty, is to shorten the lifespan of anybody's pain and suffering. If there's a way I can do it and get you there straight shot instead of zigzagging, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say for myself working with you, you know, and it was just it was 3 times.
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times that we met. And I remember it was after I was really sick, and you know, I was telling you that I wanted to do this podcast, but I had a lot of fear of criticism. And, you know, and you actually, I believe you said, my guides are showing me this image, and it was an image of, do you remember this? And it was an image of somebody, and it was like, I want to say almost the ladder was burning and they needed to jump. It was this, and it was,
it was the tower. Was it the tower card?
It was the tower card. And, but I remember feeling deeply in my soul space, like, yeah, okay, you got to jump, Gina Minardi. And and then you gave me this very specific, and this is, you know, and I remember asking you the most basic questions and a lot of the things that I knew, but you also helped create that plan for me. And I think that's important for people listening to this, whatever you want to do in your life, you know, whether it's starting a new career or creatively, how you want to open up, setting aside a plan and time to make things happen. And that's where you beautifully said to me, open up the damn microphone, you know, and just start talking into it. Yeah. And I was like, what? Yeah. So you're gifted in that. So thank you. Thank you.
Gifted in speaking straight ahead, speaking straight up. Yep.
A no bullshit woman. Yes.
No bullshit woman.
Yeah. So would you like to take a moment? I know your second book that you're writing is more specifically geared towards women and helping them get all the tools that they need to live in the highest expression of themselves and show the world who they really are.
Yeah, that book is just I'm still working on it.
Okay.
It has been the most exciting thing too, because it's a shift from the first one, which was kind of pretty technical, just self-satisfying in terms of being able to write that kind of content. But this one is different, and I'm writing about it because I believe in people revolutionizing their life. I've done it in mine. I still work on it. I help people do it, and I believe that is the only way to live, is to revolutionize your life. And you can't have a revolution without being all in, without certain things happening. And you can't keep that revolution evolving and developing if you don't have a plan. So it's all about how to show up in the truest and highest expression of yourself. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't want to give too much away, because it's so exciting.
Yes.
But it really is. And I can tell you, when I've shared it with women, because it really is geared towards women, even though men could benefit from the content. Very, very excited about it, because I think everybody needs to have something in their life that's compelling. And I feel like everybody needs to have a sense of fulfillment and contribution and service and just honesty, to live in the honest truth of who you are without worry.
Yes.
So that's what it's going to be about.
Yes, I love it.
I'm excited.
Yes. And I'm also excited because I feel that we are in the time right now where a lot of women are stepping into their power.
Yep.
I'm seeing it in my private practice and girlfriends, and taking bigger risks, stepping into their voices, more intensely. And so I love that that's your focus, because there needs to be, the feminine shift, I would say.
Oh, yeah. And I do talk about that. Like, there's so many, and we've talked about this too. Mm-hmm. There's so many women who are they have needed to be strong for so long that they're stuck in their masculine. Yeah. And so we as women need to be able to be in our feminine, right? But still be able to encapsulate or embody that masculine, but just to learn how to be feminine and strong at the same time.
Yeah. Really interesting that you bring that up, because I've talked about this with several guests on the podcast. And I love getting everyone's different answers to this, because I'm still figuring it out. I have struggled with having an overabundance of masculine energy. I've always been very strong, a caretaker in my life, a leader. I love control. I'm learning how to sort of...
Me too.
Yes. And I'm learning how to soften and surrender, and just all of the things that feel a bit more feminine to me. Mm-hmm. What would you say if you were working with a client, or again, speaking directly to the audience? How do you think that somebody can work on stepping more into their feminine or feminine divine?
A couple of thoughts. One, to me, is being feminine is all about receptivity. It's just really all about that. And the other piece is to consider being in your feminine as strong as being in your masculine. Like, it's just as strong. Mm-hmm. It carries that much credibility too. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you think about it, there are two kind of people that can walk into a room and grab attention. There's one who's loud and flamboyant and, very, very catch your eye kind of dress and presentation. And so you can't help but hear them first, right? And look. And then there's the other one, the strong, quiet, confident, feminine woman who walks in silently, but she's still dressed to the nines, and she just stands there, and then the whole room looks. So that, to me, is the difference, right? And so you saw that, you could picture that, right?
I mean, literally, it just hit something in my core. And I don't know if that's, because I think also as women, right, we've been trained to be the prettiest woman in the room, or the woman that walks in. I think some of us who come from certain mothers, but that's many of us, right? But I love that you bring up that kind of silent confidence that doesn't need to be necessarily the loudest.
Because it's the energy. Yeah. It's like your energy enters the room before you do. Yeah. And you literally, all you do is just stand in it.
Yeah.
And so if more women, I feel like, we women have had to prove ourselves for so long, and we have tried to be in the masculine game. And the only way to be in the masculine game in this life is to be masculine, because there's not been a parallel respect given to women who can hold their own. They're considered bitches. They're considered angry, aggressive, all these adjectives that describe a woman who's in charge. versus you would never call a man that. You would call him confident. He's got his shit together. I mean, it's just such a polarity of descriptions and just hypocrisy. So when I think about a feminine woman, I really do. I think about and I call it quiet confidence. Doesn't mean she can't speak up. It doesn't mean she can't say her piece, but the energy behind it is an energy of, I'm so comfortable in who I am that I'm okay not proving anything to you. And I can have compassion and I can understand and I can accept the fact that you don't agree the way I do, but I'm still standing on 2 feet and I'm really good. And here's where I am. So that's femininity to me. That's the balance of the quiet, confident woman. And again, when I say quiet confidence, I don't mean shuts her mouth and complies, but I mean doesn't need to prove. That's what I think.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get to help women be that.
Yes. You hit something.
Isn't that amazing?
Or yes, that's really, really amazing. Because even some of my clients that I talk to who are they're strong, strong, intense. They have a lot of qualities similar to myself. That's what I attract in.
Yeah.
Women needing to work through their masculine. And if I even say words like softening, it's equated with a weakness, and it's equated with, well, I don't want to lose this side of myself, Gina. And I have felt that in myself, but
it's always there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We have all these parts of ourselves. I call it the warrior. That's the masculine part. Like there are archetypes. And if anybody wants to look this up, there's this guy Carl Jung, Jung. He developed this whole concept of archetypes. Also Caroline Myss, Myss. She's got a ton of stuff written about archetypes. But I think so many people feel like, you know what, if I let that part go, if I give up that, it's like I got to give it up. And I tell people, you don't have to give up anything. You just let your warrior know, I don't need you all the time. If I'm in danger, if I need to be protected, hell yes, I want you to show up. But outside of that, let me just relax and enjoy my life. Like I can take care of shit without having to, zip my zipper up and tuck it in. I don't have to do that. Let me be a woman and be feminine and still take care of my stuff. So, there's no losing anything.
Yes.
It's honoring those pieces of yourself that are important to have with you all of the time. Mm-hmm. And then the other parts where you're like, yeah, no, time to go to sleep, take a nap. Yeah. I'll call you when I need you.
Yeah. Please take a nap for a while.
Yeah.
A long nap. Yes.
Seriously. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or go to the bar.
Yeah.
Come back later.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Beautifully articulated, Janis. Thank you. That was
good.
Yeah. That hit a spot.
Good.
So I want to be mindful of your time. And
sure.
Before I go into my more rapid fire questions.
Yes.
This question is, what do you think are the ingredients for a really fulfilling life that you know on a personal level, and also maybe that you've noticed working through clients, people who feel more. Now, look, let me be clear when I say this. We are all going to experience suffering and pain. That is the incarnation of being a human being. It's also part of our growth spaces. But so let's go with that word fulfillment, feeling fulfilled. Yeah. What have you in your own life or in your client's life, what do you think makes for the most fulfilled life?
I think not everybody's going to agree with me on what I have to say, but that's okay.
That's okay.
I think to feel fulfilled, I believe that we need to have a purpose that's greater than our own. I feel like to be able to be of service and to give is the number one way to have a sense of fulfillment. I feel like having somebody to love offers us fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And then I think the fulfillment also comes with the ability to be in joy, to have joy. And to me, those are the things. Like to truly feel fulfilled you gotta get out of the me, and you have to be about somebody else and the world and doing something to leave your mark. There's nothing more important than having a compelling life, things to look forward to. That's what it all means to me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, going to your point of moving from the me, that was even something I talked about in the episode, 2 episodes before. I think moving from the me to the we, right?
Huge.
How can we be of service to one another? And it doesn't mean that everybody shows up to be, a therapist or a healer or, but what are your kindnesses on a daily basis?
That's it.
And
That's it.
that's it, and how are
Right.
you interacting with the local 7-Eleven, even though I don't know the last time I've been in a 7-Eleven with COVID, but it's
Yeah, right.
how are you treating people? How are you showing up?
Mhm.
What are the small acts of love? And that would be a huge shift. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a bag that I carry in my car, and I have it kind of filled with little food, like little bars and stuff, because at various different intersections there are homeless people, and now it's cold and all of that, and so I will I'm prepared. So I always have that bag in my car, and so I'll give them a bunch of food to have.
Yeah.
That's my intention, because I say to myself, if God forbid I was in their place, God forbid I would want somebody to give me something, and to have the respect for them, because whether they ended up there, they didn't choose there, they ended up there, right? It's a difference. I would want somebody to have that kind of kindness towards me. So that's an example of thinking, and I'm not bragging on myself, I promise. I'm just saying it's an example of little things that people can do to keep in mind what's outside of you. It's a we, it's not a me, it's a we. So whatever you could do to make somebody's world a bit better, to give of yourself, clean your closet out, donate to women's shelters, men's shelters, feed the homeless. If you see somebody at the side of the street who doesn't have anything to eat, go buy them something. Like, nothing better than that. And don't tell a soul.
Yeah.
Just do it because it's between you, God, and that person. That's how I live.
Yeah. Yeah. Through a space of humility.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And loving kindness.
Loving. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Janis, you said something that now I just have to ask a question to before I go into my rapid fire, which was, it's so interesting because a lot of spiritual teachers will say that we choose this incarnation. And I noticed when you said, with the homeless people, and I have like a really deep sensitivity towards the homeless. I don't know if I was homeless in a past
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm like, whoa, but it's so intense for me, not only in the, watching what people physically go through,
Yep.
but mentally, being
Yep.
going through. But you said the difference, they ended up there versus choosing that. So I guess this is maybe a big question. And
no, that's, I think I know where you're getting to.
Okay. So if someone, say a spiritual teacher was to say, well, no, they chose that incarnation, right? They chose to be that homeless person. And I've heard this many a times. What would you say to that?
I will say very honestly, I have been doing past life regression with people for 11. Since 2008, y'all. I stink at math. That's all I tell you. Since 2008, so however long that makes me do it, it's 2021, whatever. That's how long I've been doing it. So anyway, so I help people connect with their past, right, under hypnosis and resolve things. Okay, so here's what I know. What I know is that before we incarnate, our soul has made all these agreements with every single experience, person, place, thing that we are incarnating into. Every single moment is plotted out. Okay. Now, The reason why I said that that person ended up there versus choosing that is because, now, two differentiations. One is because of past karma, okay, because of karma that was created in a past life, there is debt that needs to be paid. So maybe somebody was very wealthy and was very arrogant and really extorted and exploited people, and so maybe their soul has to learn that lesson of humility by coming back as somebody who has a hard time financially, right? Homeless. So that's one explanation. Another explanation is that, what part of going from A to B to C was that they fell off the bike a little bit and they ended up there versus their soul says, oh, this is where you're going to be. This is where you're stuck. Mm-hmm. So there's always free will. We as human beings always have free will, no matter what has been predicted for us or planned out for us. So I always say ended up there because in a moment, there can be an aha where this person can change their life, right? So in the moment that I encounter those people, they have ended up in that moment, just like I have, right? That's not my destiny to stay at that corner of the street. I will move forward, right? Or go somewhere different. So will that person. So that's why I say, even though before we incarnate, we hit the delete button on our life, so we don't know what's ahead and we don't know the pain we're going to encounter. And if we did, we would do everything we could to avoid it. We have to go through what we have to go through. And sometimes you have to hit rock bottom. I think many of us have hit a point of rock bottom. And you either, as we Southerners say, you shit or get off the pot. Like you either die or you change your life. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we end up in places that build up the internal tension, mm-hmm. and we make changes. Mm-hmm. So I have respect for people who don't have a home, mm-hmm. and I have respect for the fact that, they don't know where their next meal has come from. They're living on the street and they have a cart that they push around and they haven't showered in weeks and they don't have what I have. Mm-hmm. So if again, I'm kind of going on my soapbox, if there's a way that I can be helpful, great. But in terms of our soul's kind of destiny, so to speak, we have our experiences from different lifetimes in the past, multiple lifetimes in the past. And in each lifetime, we settle our karmic debt. Mm-hmm. We learn the lessons we need to learn so that we can end patterns and eventually, ultimately, clean up mm-hmm. our humanness, mm-hmm. so we can live in the heavens. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what I believe. That's how it's trained.
All right. Yeah. Beautifully answered. Your incarnation and what the soul dance goes through.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to give you the reason I have, these are actually big questions.
Oh.
But I have them as kind of rapid fire or quick so that people just go from their intuition or their so the first one is kind of silly, but I always start with this one, which is do you prefer Beyonce or Rihanna or neither?
I think I like a combo.
Oh, you are the first
combo. Okay. I like a combo.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. She loves a combo. All right. Why do you think we're here on this planet?
To make it a better place.
Okay.
That's a Miss America answer, but I really believe that. I really believe that we are here to help each other. That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think happens after death?
Our soul lives on. I all I believe is that our body dies. That's it. Okay. Our soul is eternal, and we get to go up to heaven, and we get to kind of work through. We do a life review, and we have a choice. We could either come back and incarnate. If you've done all your work, you can stay up in heaven, but you have a choice. You could be a spirit guide in the human form, or you can guide from above those people that need you. But the soul lives on forever.
All right. What are the greatest lessons you've learned in life?
First and foremost, that there's something to learn from everything that happens. Always. And because I feel like in life, when I've asked the question, why me, that's gotten me nowhere.
Mhm.
So if I ask kind of why not me or what's in it for me, then I get farther and I say to myself, that's the best place to be, is to be able to say, okay, I don't know the answer to this now, but what do I learn from this?
Yeah.
There's always something to learn.
Yeah.
And there are two other things, in all honesty. I'm to use every part of my life in this lifetime to help people, period. Period. And I forgot what the third thing I was going to say is, but yeah, to help each other
Okay.
and to
Okay.
use life.
Okay. Beautiful. And last question. We've all heard a sentence or a quote or a phrase, whether it's from a friend, maybe a coach or a therapist you've worked with, or somebody in passing that has really guided you. Or you could even have a couple, but just something that pops up from time to time that like you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's what that little nugget of wisdom.
I always have a couple of examples of answers. And so if I could take some liberties to do that. Okay. So years ago,
Mhm.
I was in therapy with this wonderful therapist. I had gone through a very, very difficult relationship, which was actually a karmic relationship. And I really was struggling to make sense of it. And I hadn't been taught how to. So I would say to her, I don't understand why has all this happened again, right? So there's that question, why me? Why did it have to happen again? And she was the sweetest lady, and she's like Glenda the Good Witch of the North, right? In the Wizard of Oz. She was that sweet. But she was good. And she said to me, because I was so bad, I used to say, F him, F him. She says, Janice, you have to turn every F you into a thank you. That was one. And then, because it shifts your focus from, okay, how can I be grateful for this pain? That's the point of that. And the second is a saying I've adopted that's just real simple country wisdom. It is what it is. Now what?
I mean, that is beyond simple.
Yeah.
That is just true,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
you don't argue with the truth. That's the thing. If you start arguing with the truth,
Yeah.
then you're in trouble.
Yeah. It is what it is. Now what? Oh yeah. Janice R. Cohen. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me today. And my apologies on any technological hiccups.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I would love if you would tell the audience where they can find you. If you have
Super.
any offerings coming up, let it rip.
Okay. All right. So y'all can find my book, The Intuitive Therapist, on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. You can download digital copy. You can get a physical copy. You can do whatever you want. I hope you get it. It's a great book. Thank you so much for plugging that. My podcast is called The Intuitive Therapist Podcast. Imagine that. And it's on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and iTunes. And you'll look it up, The Intuitive Therapist Podcast. So please hop over onto iTunes, subscribe to any other 4 ways. Write a rating and review. That would be awesome. But please, it's a love that I have, and I hope you'll listen to some episodes. My website is www.janisrcohen.com. That's JANISRCOHEN.com. And if you want to send me an email, Janis@janisrcohen.com. And on my website, you can find out a little bit more about me, what I do. And if you feel like there's a way that I could be helpful, either through a reading or through therapeutic work together, feel free to reach out to me.
Wonderful. And you all should reach out because Janis, she's truly gifted and she's wonderful. And you're just such a kind soul. You really, you got such a big heart. So thank you so much for being on Spaces Between. Yes, and helping me launch this bitch. Yes, thank you. Endless.
Yes.
I think about you every time I'm taking notes for an episode. Just know that you're part of that cerebral,
good, love it,
intuitive process. So yeah, thanks, Janis. Now have a beautiful day, and I'll see you later.
See ya.
Hi, friends. If you have been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.